Hey, I'm Bradley Denniston. I am an artist, independent artist. This is Brian Johnson here from Spotify. Okay, so you are head of Artist and Industry Partnership International.
Yes.
What the hell does that mean?
It's a great question. So my role sits kind of at the intersection of artists, industry, policymakers. My job really is to try and understand the concerns and what the artist community think about Spotify, what they need from Spotify,
Nice.
and translate that into what policies we're rolling out, but also what tools we're launching.
That's hard. You got to be an artist head. You got to like try to figure that out. Like artists don't even know sometimes, you know?
The thing I try and bring is my experience as an artist. I spent the first half of my career as a touring, performing, recording
Awesome.
artist. So everything I do is kind of like half artist mindset, half industry mindset, and that's the balance.
Yeah, it's almost needed in your role, yeah?
It is. It's super important that we understand what the artist community need.
Yeah.
But we can't just rely on people like me in the company. It's very important that we're speaking to artists, songwriters, their representatives on a day-to-day basis to understand as well.
Yeah. So what's your instrument of choice?
Drums.
Drums, nice. Yeah, I grew up playing drums. My very first instrument I fell in love with was drums.
It's a great instrument. I was a choir boy as well. I should say that.
Yeah.
Shout out to the church choir,
There
school
you go.
choir. But I actually wanted a guitar, but for some reason my mum said it was too loud, and I ended up with a drum kit. So go figure.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Guitar's way too loud. Give him these drums and let him bang on those. You know? Yeah. So as an indie artist yourself, what's the most common misconception you see kind of coming in from how artists actually make real income with Spotify?
I think sometimes people look at a platform, a service like Spotify and think, okay, only the biggest artists that's kind of top percentile are actually going to grow. And I guess traditionally that was all artists who went independent. But actually the Spotify ecosystem, and now's a good time to talk about this. Spotify is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year.
Yeah, big deal.
It's a big deal, right? 20 years ago, it was a totally different landscape. Industry was ravaged by piracy. It was kind of on its knees. And the question was, can we even survive?
Yeah.
And Spotify was born as a symptom of the decline in recorded music to try and make a difference and put money back into the system for artists at all levels. And one thing we're celebrating this year in our Loud and Clear report, the first takeaway, is this big $11 billion payout that we made last year.
Yeah.
Now, look, 11 billion, it's a massive figure. It's kind of hard to contextualize. But the thing to mention first is over half of that went to indie artists and labels. And we can break it down further, of course. But half of that went to indie artists and labels. And I think that's surprising because most people would look at, hey, Spotify paid out 11 billion and just assume it goes to artists of a certain kind, a certain
major labels.
A certain deal structure. It goes to a broad set of artists. And we're seeing way more paths for artists open up in the streaming era, which is super inspiring.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think, like you said, it's like the $1 billion marker. The way I always think about that, I'm like, okay, $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, hundreds of millions. It is kind of a number that we can't really fathom, like as people,
It's crazy. And so part of this report we do, Loud and Clear, it's dissecting that in different ways. So I'll give a few takeaways now. So one of the takeaways is a third of artists generating $10,000 were DIY or started as DIY. So people releasing via distributors.
These are like annual.
So that was last year.
Yeah,
so that's what we saw last year. Another similar one to do with kind of like independent emerging artists. Of the artists generating 100,000 last year, 1 in 10 got the start on Fresh Finds. And Fresh Finds is Spotify's editorial kind of playlist ecosystem for emerging and independent artists.
Gotcha.
I think that's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's pretty huge, and we're seeing it's not just the top percent. It's the growth is from the bottom up, and we're seeing of course the people who are at the very top are earning more, but the people coming through are earning more as well. If anything, they're on a quicker trajectory to keep earning.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think mainly for me, I think about that as those opportunities didn't exist 20 years ago.
No.
Not for independent artists. That wasn't a real thing.
I think sometimes just talking about the past can be like, hey, this is how it used to be in the good old days. But I think this being our 20th year, it's a good moment to reflect and look back. I was releasing records 20 years ago.
Right.
And I've released records in my time, both DIY, literally going into the store as like a 14, 15-year-old negotiating with the store manager to stock the CD.
Oh, you're hustling.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Day one. indie deals, major deals, but the routes to market were far narrower. And even if you took the indie route, you still kind of needed that bigger indie infrastructure.
Yeah, the distribution.
Yeah,
right.
but I think that kind of digital distributor setup that's come through in the streaming era and has given more opportunities for artists to cut through, not just in the home markets, across different countries as well.
Right.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that is super exciting. And honestly, like, I wonder, why are other DSPs not releasing publicly their numbers and then, talking about this stuff? Spotify correct me if I'm wrong, aren't they the only company that actually publishes this report publicly?
Yes, so we're the only company doing this report with this level of information. We would love other services to do it.
Yeah.
Here's why. What's happened the past few years is this platform's kind of come up for artists, songwriters, musicians to have a voice.
Yeah.
And from my own experience, we didn't have a voice previously. And the thing that kind of propelled me to kind of move into the industry was my frustration as an artist that artists weren't being listened to.
Yeah.
But I feel like the past few years, there's this great platform that's come up for artists, songwriters, musicians to question and query the industry who are acting on their behalf and just making sure, is this being done the right way? Can we sense check this? So the more information out there from the industry, the more transparency, the more clarity we can give to artists, songwriters, the better.
Yeah, I feel like that should just be like a thing in the industry for all DSPs, right?
Yeah, and
it'd be nice.
I guess on a scale, things are gradually moving in that direction. Spotify was the first platform to open up a portal like Spotify for artists.
Yeah.
Data, best practices,
which I use every day. I use it all the time because I work with independent artists and I'm working on my own music, you know what I mean? So it's where you check stuff.
That's great to hear. So you'll know very well then that other platforms have followed suit, and
they started doing the back end, right?
And that's great because that is transparency, that's clarity, but we need more.
Yeah, and I think honestly, Spotify for artists, the back end is way better. It's more complete, and it keeps getting better over time.
That's good.
And I don't see that with other DSPs. And I'm in the trenches. You know what I mean? Like 86,000 monthly listeners. Like putting my money into it, promoting myself. I love that Spotify has algorithmic playlists. They have discovery mode. There's all these things that other DSPs just do not give you. It's impossible to grow on other DSPs. They're not as much a discovery platform as Spotify.
Yeah, and look, discovery is so important. Let's have this conversation. There are over 100,000 tracks coming on streaming platforms every single day. If I'm not a new artist, so I'm not quite in this mindset, but if I was coming through now, I would imagine that's quite daunting. I'm sure you can tell me, on the people you're working with might feel the same. Yeah. So, we know we can give people a global audience across more than 180 markets. We've got over 700 million people around the world using Spotify. There's dedicated listeners, music fans everywhere. It's also important that we give the tools and opportunities and education and advice and best practices so people know how to use the platform, how to use Spotify, what tools are available, how can they highlight the single EP, album, tour dates, how can they get tickets in the hands of the right people, how can they express themselves visually. And a lot of this is also born out of just listening, like trying to listen to artists, take feedback from artists, managers, the teams, rights holders, as to what is going to be most beneficial to be on Spotify. Yeah. And S4A, as we call it, Spotify for artists, the Spotify kind of listener view, as you see it now, that's born out of not just listener kind of customer feedback, but it's also artist feedback as well. Interesting.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking on that, because I think a lot of artists are trying to figure out the monetization of their music, right? It's unfortunately, we have to, right? Because we have to be able to pay our bills. We have to be able to reinvest in the music and build the catalog and, paying producers, mixing engineers, mastering engineers like myself. Yeah. It's not cheap, right? We've been doing this for decades. Yeah. So I'd like to get your kind of consensus on patterns, or if you've noticed any patterns of artists that are going from that kind of $10,000, a year annual revenue bringing in from Spotify, and maybe even just five figures, like, going to the 20K, 30K, like what are the differences or anything that you're correlating between that and, the artists that are making $100,000 or more through Spotify?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think we can draw there's a DIY indie element there as well. I'm not saying people earning those thresholds are strictly DIY or independents, but we're definitely seeing more and more DIY indie artist creators coming through.
Explain that real quick. Like, break down DIY. Are you talking like entrepreneurial endeavor, musicians, artists that are building their businesses, sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's exactly that. It's people who, the way I see it, it's people with an entrepreneurial mindset. They're doing it themselves. You know, the kind of keys in the acronym. They're doing it themselves, and they're driving their own success, their own careers.
Yeah.
Maybe they understand the value of the copyright they've got.
Yeah.
So, you know, typically a DIY artist might retain 100% of their copyright,
Master, recording,
right, which means they get 100% of the income.
Totally.
Or they might give away, maybe there's a commission, so they're doing 90% on a short-term
For
deal.
sure.
But the flip of that, a traditional old-school deal might be 80-20 or even less favorable.
Yeah, for towards the artist, where they're getting 20 or 15.
20.
Or,
and then they're paying any advance out of that 15 or 20.
Yeah.
So I think the people coming through in the DIY space may be more knowledgeable, maybe more educated than previous times, because the DIY space has really come up over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And prior to that, there just wasn't as much information out there on how all this worked.
Real.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, taking that, you know, from that 5 figures to 6 figures, you know, that's a big jump. Like, I think the dream is for most DIY, independent, I mean, even label artists, right?
Yeah.
Like, their dream is, I want to make 100K, 150K a year in music.
Yeah.
I'd be good, man. I can pay my rent. I can pay my bills. I can play music, you know. Like, what are there anything there that you see that typically changes? Is it just the business structure, entrepreneurial mindset and what they're doing? Or is it, you know, that they're uploading consistently to Spotify? Like, what's the thing?
So,
if anything,
there's no magic button.
Right.
I mean, that's the first thing. I think what we're seeing is the people who are finding success are leveraging every opportunity available to them. And maybe this ties into the entrepreneurial mindset. So they're grabbing opportunities. And those opportunities on Spotify will be, they are pitching music for playlist consideration. They are using a tool like Marquee to highlight their new release.
Right.
They're using something like Showcase to highlight back catalogue.
Yeah.
They're using discovery mode. They're using Canvas, and they're making sure the tour data are on there.
Right.
And they're making sure that whenever a fan, a potential fan, a listener, lands on their artist profile, they're getting a complete understanding of who that artist is. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a total in-depth bio. Maybe the artist wants to be a bit more mysterious, and it's just like some sort of, you know, abstract expressionist painting. But if that expresses the music, brilliant, and that showcases who they are. Fantastic. So it's really just making sure the artist uses the tools, creates their identity on Spotify, releases music, you know, and has a plan in place for how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And people do that in different ways. Some people drop tracks every few months. Some people do it every month. It just depends what works for you as an artist. Use your data. Look at the information in Spotify for artists to understand who your audience are, how engaged they are. We've got some new metrics in there where you can see like super listeners and how engaged someone is in a track or a set of tracks. And just try and understand who they are and make informed decisions based on that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I've learned that, you know, just as an independent artist, like looking at my songs that have performed the best. And, you know, I'm looking at things like save rates, and I'm looking at streams per listener, and I'm looking at playlist ads.
Yeah.
You know, all these things that I kind of see, oh, this song is doing way better. We're getting to 2 million streams on this song. Why? Compared to these other songs that I've done, you know?
Well, the things you just mentioned, they're active choices that a listener makes, right? Someone listens to your track and goes, I'm going to save this. Add to my own collection. You know, and it's that thing which can help turn a casual listener into a fan. So then the other thing is, you know, outside of Spotify reflects what's happening in the world. Yeah. So it reflects culture.
Sure.
So the broader question is, you know, what's an artist's strategy on their socials, or, you know, off digital? Like, what's the broader strategy to ensure that someone gets hooked in somewhere, somehow, and then goes back to search for the track and listen on Spotify and saves it and create that fan connection? Yeah.
So do you think that part of the discovery is where Spotify is getting enough data to be able to recommend those songs in, you know, playlists like radio and, you know, mixes and all that stuff?
Yeah. There are so many settings now where we're able to help artist discovery. I mentioned Fresh Finds before. Fresh Finds is a fantastic place for it, and the stats speak for themselves in this year's report. The other thing we're leaning into, of course, is AI. I'm sure we'll touch on AI.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're constantly testing new features in the app. Prompted playlist, there's AI DJ we've had for quite a while.
Yeah.
But we're basically testing more features to give more control to listeners so they can discover things on their terms. And that's a big shift at Spotify, and you're going to start to see that.
Yeah. We saw the keynote yesterday, right? Like that was really cool. Let's talk about that. I think that's something that I'm very interested in, because I think a lot of the times people have a negative connotation on what AI is, right? Because obviously it got into the creation process with different tools and, generative AI, music and all that. And, there's a big ethical question there, obviously, from people that have been working on their craft for 30 years and then someone goes in and prompts something.
Yeah.
Right. But I really liked that you guys are focusing on using AI to help the listener find the music that they want to hear.
Yeah.
So can you speak more on like what that AI, is it agentic AI? Is that the idea? And it's going in and you're getting better recommendations as a listener and as a customer.
Yeah, so it's almost like making the algorithm work for you.
Yeah.
So on your, when you load Spotify, there's more of an opportunity to tell the platform what it is you need.
Yeah.
And a great example. So one of the prompted playlist, I was chatting with a colleague yesterday, and he's got this great prompt where he was like, okay, I want you to give me 10 tracks regularly that are by artists under 100,000 monthly listeners. I want you to give me a line or two context on each. I want them to be like DIY or the distributor. And then he gets this regular playlist. And I've copied that prompt, and I just use that now. Yeah. And it's just a great way to have discovery on your own terms. Yeah. But, of course, across our existing platform and suite of playlists, we've got that in place also.
So basically, like the way I'm seeing it is like, I used to dig through records, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd sample records, to make beats or whatever back in the days. And one of my favorite things was to go to the CD store, right? Like when your favorite band dropped. I forget, it was like a Thursday. I don't know the drop date, but you go to the record store and I think
it was.
Yeah,
it was different in different markets, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'd walk into this one record shop and they'd always have like a whiteboard where they have like the new releases and they'd write all the bands, and like, oh, this new album, that new album. And you'd have to like kind of dig through stuff, right? And that was cool. That was like discovery in music. Not that everybody wants that, right? Because a lot of people just want to be put on to new stuff. But the interesting part about this is it feels like a digital version of that, right? Where it's like, hey, I like this obscure band and this obscure artist over here. Give me some more like that. Yeah. Instead of having to deal with, hey, I'm just going to get this top 40 stuff.
Yeah. And it's, again, we have a suite of editorial playlists that cater to moods, moments, genres, subgenres, right. subgenres. You can go really, really deep. Yeah. I guess this supercharges it. And it's always about using technology in the right way and channeling it in the right way. Yeah. And I think when we talk about AI, there's always this kind of like haze around it of fear. And I think it's good to be aware of that fear, because our kind of POV on it is to really help accelerate the best part of AI. We need to protect against the worst. Yeah. And the worst parts for us are when someone's using AI to essentially spam Spotify, infringe on artists, songwriters' rights. And we don't stand for that. But we don't stand for that regardless of the tech used, whether it's AI or not. Right. But AI can help accelerate it. So that's something we've been super, super mindful of, been rolling out policies in line with. So you've seen us announce things like just a better spam filter, improved impersonation policy. Yeah. We're getting behind an industry standard for AI credits. So right now on Spotify, you can see credits like performers, and you can see like rights holders and songwriters. We're actually going deeper. We've got something called Song DNA, which is great especially if you used to sample stuff or you still sample stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. Right. I saw the Song DNA stuff. So cool.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And so you can go really, really deep on like tracks and like the samples in the tracks. Right. But a question people have been asking, and I've seen from some surveys, like artists are suggesting it, listeners are suggesting it. Should we have credits on platforms? So we last year we announced that we're getting behind an industry standard to have AI credits on Spotify.
Love that. So what do AI credits look like? Because I think that's maybe the hottest topic right now in the world of any art. Right? Because a lot of people anywhere. I mean, even dude, you're on social media and you're like, is this real or is this AI generated?
Yeah.
And you just want to know as a human, I think a lot of the times, just because sometimes you do not like something because it was just prompted, you know?
Yeah.
And you can't connect with it. You can't go reach out to that artist. You can't go to their show. You know, you can't really connect with them in a way that you thought you were really connecting with something or someone, you know? So as far as that goes, like the transparency on AI, how is Spotify moving forward with that? Like, is that going to be like a tag system, or like, are we going to see like generative AI, or is that like too hard because some of it's kind of 30% AI, and you know what I mean?
It's still in development for a good reason. You just touched on some of the reasons.
Yeah.
I think it's a spectrum. It's not a binary. There's so many use cases, edge cases, corner cases.
Right.
So as with anything we do on Spotify, before we roll it out fully, we've got to test it and make sure we're kind of covering all bases. So, you know, we're in constant dialogue with artists, songwriters, like the rights holder community to figure this out. So we've announced it, we're working on it, and you'll see more on that soon.
Cool. So as far as like spammed out AI stuff, like, you know, I'm sure you guys are getting like generative AI, you know, people are blowing out Sunos onto Spotify every day. Like, how are you dealing with that stuff?
So worth mentioning that we kicked out 75 million spammy tracks in like the past 12 months. So this, I mean, but we're across this again, regardless of the tech used to facilitate the spam. I should kind of sidetrack or backtrack and say that we don't stand in the way of creativity or tell artists how to create. That's our overarching view on this. And we think AI can be a tool used for good, but again, it's about preventing the bad.
Yeah.
So music can come on Spotify if it's licensed, if it doesn't infringe on someone's rights, clearly. It can come on, whether that's non-AI or AI. But if it does infringe on someone's rights, if it is spam, then there are opportunities to get that off the platform. Right. Now, typically, again, historically, just looking back 20 years, I think previously an artist might have gone, okay, how on earth do we do this? Someone's ripping me off, someone's impersonating me.
Seriously.
I've got to speak to my distributor. Maybe I can't get hold of my distributor because they're dealing with many artists asking other questions or the same questions. Yeah. But an artist can let Spotify know directly. We've got an infringement form, which you can find on our site. You can go via your distributor as well. It's worth doubling up, just so like, you know, the more people telling us something's wrong, the quicker we can get it down.
Yeah, love that. I think it's most important to people that they just know. You know what I mean? It's like knowing. If you go into the grocery store and you get the beef that's grass-fed, organic, and you're paying more money for it, you know, and you're like, this is going to be good for me, right? You know, you want to know that. You want to know that that's treated differently, right? Than this, beef that, came out of a crazy slaughterhouse. They were just piling on, or whatever. You're like, I don't want to eat all that, chicken nuggets from, whatever fast food restaurant. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you really want to know what you're eating. You want to know what you're consuming. And I think that that's becoming more and more important to people nowadays.
Yeah. And it's, it's that we come back to transparency. It's about how do we give listeners more transparency on what we're listening to and more detail.
Yeah, I love that. And going off that, because I'm going back, let's circle back to independent artists. Because like this is obviously I'm an independent artist, so I'm like, being a little selfish here. But let's talk about the royalty pool, because I think that's maybe the most misunderstood thing. And I was in a keynote yesterday, South by Southwest, that's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So they were talking about the royalty pool and how it works. Like a lot of people think it works on a per stream basis, right? So can you explain a little bit more about how the royalty pool actually works? And we're talking about over all streaming services. Yep.
So first thing to mention is no streaming service pays a per stream rate. Fans don't pay per listen, so no one pays a per stream rate.
Facts. Okay.
Streaming services pay by stream share. So the way it works is, let's say in a given month, we will look at the revenue that's come in from our premium subscribers and the advertising that's on our free tier. We will park around 2/3 of that for royalties, for the royalty pool, and a third of that goes back into Spotify to reinvest in tools, features, or
nice.
R&D, etc. Yeah. That 2/3 is split roughly 4/5 to recordings, to master, and 1/5 to publishing. We pay out based on stream share. So the simplest way to explain it is back of the napkin maths.
Yeah.
If an artist had 1% of all listens in a given month, they'd receive 1% of that pool. That will go to the rights holder. So that could be the DIY distributor, indie label, major label.
Right.
And that label will account to the artist based on their individual agreements.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that's where a lot of artists get caught up a little bit. They might have, splits on the record, right? Where they're actually only getting 20% of the record.
Yeah. So these are total. This is a total valid thing to talk about. We actually launched a different resource than Loud and Clear, something called Royalties Guide, which is kind of complementary to Loud and Clear, but it covers the ecosystem, the flow of royalties, and just some of the questions some of the considerations to think about. So, what splits it? What's your deal with your rights holder?
Right.
Even with a PRO, what commission are you giving away? How often are you being accounted to? How many writers are on a track? What split are you on? Are you recouped? There's just like a lot of questions to consider when you see that end statement. But ahead of that, it's just really important to know that there is no per stream rate. And I'm very conscious there are screenshots out there of like companies being compared against each other.
Yeah, which is so funny.
There's no such thing as a per stream rate. Someone can do a kind of reverse calculation and get to it. But if a company's showing they've got a high per stream rate, it kind of means there's no engagement on the service and no one's really listening to it.
Right.
Spotify have a very engaged listener base. We've got the biggest pool of royalties. 11 billion paid out last year in total, which breaks down and supports artists, whether the DIY, indie, major. We're very confident in what we're doing. So
to wrap this up, what are you the most proud of this year from, going, 20 years, right, of Spotify? And I don't know, if you've been there, with Spotify for 20 years or not, but what are you most proud of seeing, the last 2 decades and what happened in 2025? Like, what is the, shining thing for you? You're like, hell yeah.
The one thing that stands out for me is around diversity. So songs in 16 languages reached our global top 50 last year, which is more than double the number in 2020. Now, 16 different languages in the Spotify top 50. Let's give some context around this. When I was a kid, I was going record shopping in HMV on Church Street in Liverpool. HMV was like the kind of UK tower, I guess. I'm crate digging, I'm looking for records. But really, those stores stocked English-speaking music across different genres. Right. The genres were kind of broad. It was quite a big store.
Folk, rock and roll.
Yeah. Right. And you might get like a Serge Gainsbourg record, and that might be the French anomaly. Yeah. But basically, any other language that wasn't English was kind of in this world music corner, which is quite
push it all in one corner, right?
and so limited shelf space in a store that's got limited shelf space anyway because it's got brick and mortar. It's bricks. Like it can only fit in what's between those brick walls. So to see where we are now, where there's way more languages, 16 languages last year in the top 50, and that's more than double from even 5 years ago. I think that's super inspiring because it means whether it's like Bad Bunny or Jenny or these artists just breaking through, singing in their own language, cutting across different countries, finding audiences. I think that's amazing. I think it's great for listeners. I think it's great for new artists coming through because being exposed to different music from different backgrounds, maybe different instrumentation, different approaches to harmony, etc., different approaches to songwriting. What that's going to do to songwriting, composition, recording in the next 5, 10, 20 years, that's exciting for me.
I'm already seeing it in LA. You see it in the writers' circles.
Really?
Yeah, people are, K-pop, Brazilian funk. There's so many things that are just like intertwining into pop music now.
Love it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really great. And there's a lot of Spanish, singers, and there's, Japan buys physicals like crazy still. Korea does as well. Like there's so many places where they really value these things. And I think also a lot of younger kids, Gen Z, Gen Alpha are really excited about owning something physical, so I think the world music is finding its way into all of that.
And let's touch on the physical thing. I think, we've always supported people selling merchandise through Spotify, whether that's vinyl or CDs or t-shirts. But ticketing's been a big focus for us. Yeah. We drove, I think we've driven 1.5 billion in concert ticket sales to date.
Wow.
from Spotify. So we've always had tickets on the page,
Right.
but we've basically ramped up the tech to help get the right tickets in front of the right listeners. So there's different ways in which we're doing that. But being able to support an artist, a broader business is super important, because, recording, publishing, key parts, but it's not everything.
Right.
People go and play shows. They sell T-shirts. They sell records at the back of the hall.
Facts.
But in terms of broader ecosystem support, being able to fill out venues, whether it's a grassroots venue or a concert hall or bigger, it's super important, because we know some of these venues are struggling more than they were. Because of different reasons, economic reasons.
Right.
And us being able to get tickets in the right hands of people, in the hands of the right people, sell more, fill out those rooms, pack those venues. I think that's inspiring.
Yeah, it's big. It's big. We need all the revenue we can, as independent artists. So obviously, I always appreciate everything that Spotify does for artists. I'm going to keep pushing all of my people to go there, my audience, from TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Thank you.
I'm trying to get them all to go to Spotify because it really is the place where, I can get more discovery. I can get a little boost from you guys. And I think that that's really important when you're doing it all on your own.
And look, for you and your viewers, when you've got ideas, let us know. Hit us up on Spotify for Artists.
Yeah,
we're
man,
on
I'm
our
excited.
socials. We pay attention.
For sure. I'm excited to see what comes next,
Good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for the convo, man.
Thank you.